sent the notice to that time?
No, he has not.
So go back to your email and the notice should be there.
I got, well, when I try to hit it, she's got a thing to download, and every time I hit that, it just downloads and then it stops. It goes back. Like, that's not letting me download that.
Can you resend it to me?
Yeah, let me send your first copy.
Okay, if you want to do that, please, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Well, he does.
I'll try that.
You don't have to send it.
All right. Tambo, man. We got a game.
Good evening, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
I hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Great, great. Okay.
Yes.
Sir.
Jim is having a few problems getting logged in, so what we'll do is open up and get through the preliminaries, and hopefully he'll chime in here shortly. Okay. Let's just start out with the moment of silence, please. Thank you. And I just want to mention that we're still under the Governor's Executive Order number 34. So we'll be meeting this month, our work session and our board meeting will be electronic. We will be having the meeting streamed and recorded. We don't have our excellent sign language person in this meeting, but hopefully we will have her during our regular meeting. Let me go ahead and do roll call. Kevin?
Here.
Wayne?
Here.
Doris?
Here.
Jim, are you on yet? He's working with Jim. Carol? Janice,
Here.
AJ,
Here.
Shannon.
Here.
Okay, thank you. First on the agenda, Janice Carroll, are you on? We've got the JMCEA report. Are you on, Janice? I guess not. We'll move right into our financial report with Holly.
Good evening. I have a fairly brief report tonight. We've got 5 budget amendments. Item number 1 is in the General Purpose Schools Fund, $137,620. This amendment aligns the general ledger to anticipated expenditures through year end. The next 2 items are in the Federal Projects Fund. Item number 2 is $1,000. This is a Title 10 McKinney-Vento Adjustment. This amendment aligns the general ledger to the state approved budget, which was recently adjusted for additional funding. Item number 3, $5,510. This is the IDEA Technology Grant. This amendment adds funding to be used toward the purchase of technology for students with disabilities and the associated training for parents and teachers. Item number 4 is in the Food Service Fund, $76,600. This amendment aligns the general ledger to anticipated expenditures through year end. And then outside of the original packet that I sent, I've added a 5th amendment. This is in the General Purpose Schools Fund. It's for legal services in the amount of $40,000. Due to workplace investigations and other legal matters, additional funds are going to be needed to pay for legal services through year end. Are there any questions on any of those 5 amendments? Okay. The May financial statement is in BOE Connect. Shown in this report, approximately $88.8 million has been expensed as of the end of May, with an additional $1.6 million. This totals 83.4% of the budget, as compared to being at 85.7% at the same time last year. Total revenues through April stand at $85.3 million, with May revenues yet to be posted. School audits have occurred over the last 2 weeks, with today being the last day for school bookkeepers to report to work. We contracted with a new firm out of Nashville this year, Crosland PLLC. The audit was handled completely off-site, with auditors having direct access to our online accounting software, School Funds Online, to review the transactions. Any records that were requested by Crosland that were not available within School Funds Online were shared securely through a file hosting platform called SureLink. The Crosland team is still working on the audit and reviewing and assessing and pulling together their preliminary reports. Typically, the final report is available by September or October and is shared with the board at that time. And you should have an audit planning guide available in BOE Connect that Crosland requested to be shared with the board. Are there any questions? That's all I have. Thank you.
Holly, I have one question.
Okay.
On the estimate year end, so you're saying that revenue over expenditure is 267,007.
That's what I'm showing. That is assuming that our county revenue is going to come in as budgeted at maintenance of effort.
Okay. One other question. I know the board has a copy of checks over 14,000. The one check that I want to ask a question about, you and Ray may chime in. The check for 17.6 to TLM and Associates for the locker rooms, JCT and West Bemis. Since we're not doing those projects, the work that they did, is it something that we can still use going forward?
Yes, they were employed to get those projects bid ready. They had to have the construction documents available for the bid paperwork. And so that is in place. So that should be able to be used when those projects are picked back up in the future.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chairman Johnson, for asking that question, because I actually had the same question, which prompted me to call Holly today, and that was our assumption on that. And Holly, thank you for checking that out for me. I appreciate that.
Okay. Then any questions for Holly? We'll move right to Madison County Finance Director Karen. Is Karen on?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Thank you, ma'am.
You should have the 141 report that was sent to Janet and out to you. And basically all I have tonight is some information on where we are with our March and April sales tax, which I know everybody's holding their breath on. Amazingly enough, for the month of March, which was when a partial shutdown in Madison County, we were down $177,633. On Friday afternoon, we received our April, which was the one we were most concerned about. So year to date, we were only down $77,031, which shows a decrease with the state for the month of March of 3.42% and for the month of April of 1.57%. However, I have been instructed by the Madison County Budget Committee to maintain a 10% decrease for FY21.
Okay. Any questions for Karen?
Karen, this is Shannon. I would like for you to repeat those numbers just so I could write them down.
Sure, and I'd be more than happy to send out an email that I sent to the commissioners that has all this information attached. If you'd like that, that'd make it a little bit easier for you, Shannon.
That would be wonderful, but if I could just have them, you
Sure.
said March numbers were down,
March
how much?
Down $193,441.
Okay.
And for April, we were down $77,031, and this is compared to prior year.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'll get that email out for Janet to get to all of you.
Excellent. Karen, I really appreciate that. That helps me look at them and understand them a little bit better, and I really appreciate your willingness to do that.
Oh, more than welcome.
Karen, also with that, now, this is looking better than I thought. So how would this affect us, if any?
Well, as I said, the budget committee still wants to stick with the decrease for FY21. What we did, the numbers that you voted on with your budget, we made your maintenance of effort whole with the sales tax. So again, we're hoping that things come in as planned, but that's kind of where we are right now. We were kind of surprised with the April numbers, pleasantly surprised, I guess you could say. So I laughed and told my commissioners that toilet paper sales must have really been good during April.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Karen? Thank you, Karen. Some good news. Okay. Next on the agenda, does anyone have any review or discussion on any of the June board meeting agenda items? If not, we're going to update information. COVID-19 update, Mr. Washington.
So this weekend, we were sent a document from the State Board of Education regarding reopening of schools for LEAs, and it's a 40-page overview. There are about 30 different appendices that are going to come out in the version of toolkits, and I can send you guys this guide if you want to, but the toolkit's going to address everything from academics to mental health to nutrition, but it's 30 different appendices covering each subject specifically that we should be receiving soon. And this is just guidance, okay? Once again, it'll be up to each individual district or LEA as how they reopen and when they reopen. There won't be any blanket guidance from the state on that. Dr. King is working on his new normal initiative for our reopening, and we started those conversations and looking into the various ways we might engage in reopening school, from elementary to secondary, to high schools and middle schools. It may not look the same. So we're looking at how we might be able to incorporate virtual or / distance learning as a part of it as we evolve with the COVID crisis and evolve into a better way of or different way of educating our students. So with all that being said, it's a work in progress. I know Dr. King will continue to provide updates as we evolve to where we're going to start, whether it be April 1st or sometime during that month, and what things are going to look like from all aspects, like I said, from transportation to academics to nutrition, all the things that we have to consider. So currently, that's our update regarding COVID-19. Are there any questions?
Well, I had a question, Mr. Washington, and if Dr. King, I believe he's on this call with us as well, but I received over the weekend phone calls and emails from constituents who were already wondering. And so I guess my thing is, as school board members, we're the point people for our constituents, whether it be parents or teachers or just other community members who are curious about school starting back. So I guess I would be urging us to make a decision about when we go back to school and what it's going to look like sooner than later, because there are people who are very anxious about what it's going to look like. And I know that last week, I think the CDC released their guidelines. I'm glad to know that the Department of Education has released this toolkit, but I really do feel like this is something that we need to be having a conversation about much sooner than later. And I don't know, Mr. Washington, if you want to speak to that, or if Dr. King is on here and he can maybe kind of give us some guidance about what he's thinking about and where we're headed with that.
Like I said, we started a couple weeks ago talking about this and what it would look like from many aspects. We're looking at a little bit more guidance as far as locally, we're going to have to engage the health department and other stakeholders to ensure that we're doing the right thing for the community overall. Like I said, Dr. King has already mapped out what he would like to see and how he's going to go about it. So I'll let him talk about that a little bit more. But I know we're not looking at it. We are looking at it in detail and in depth. We're also looking at some things that other districts are proposing and looking at, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and make sure that we're doing what's best for our district as it comes to reopening for COVID-19. So. I'd rather him to lay out his plan versus me doing that, given, he knows what's on his mind and he knows what he has in the works. At some point soon, he'll send you an update. He is on this call, but he'll send you an update through his notes that I think he sends out periodically as to where we stand with the opening, and we'll make sure that gets out, communicated to the public at large also.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. King, are you hooked up?
Let me unmute my phone now. You can hear me. When we think about our school new normal initiative, this is an initiative that's going to be for some years at this point. So I'll be presenting to the board and my executive report the frame of what this initiative looks like. I shared at our budget committee meeting about the 4 buckets that we will be operating out of. And that's one is schools, operations, communications, and academics. So we will have varied individuals serving on those different teams to determine what the opening of school will look like. Right now, I'm hearing from different districts that some schools are looking at September, some looking at later than September, some looking at August. There's not a consistent start time. I think a lot of the concerns and questions that I'm hearing from the community, not only in this community, but even in the Fayette community, is families are planning their breaks. And what we don't want to do is disrupt breaks when we think about the fall break. So we're going to take all of that into consideration as we build out this plan to make sure that we are very cognizant and very sensitive to these plans that people are putting in place. So I'm very encouraged that this will be a solid plan that we're going to put in place. We will have school leaders serving on this plan, teachers, central office staff, and community leaders a part of the different work teams. And we will continue to communicate this to the public. In your executive report this week, you will have information around the purpose, the process, and what the intended outcomes will be from this plan. And that's where we're starting from. Dr. Williams and Dr. Catlett will be leading this initiative along with myself as we build out what our school new normal initiative will be. And also, I think it's very important that we understand that this costs money. When we're thinking about the limited number of students who will be on buses, the limited number of students who will be in classroom, we have to think about the expenditure around that. And if the expenditure is such that we can't afford, we got to think about how would this look from a personalized learning option or some type of virtual option. So this will cost money, so we have to be very mindful of all of the money that it's going to take for us to push forward with this initiative. Any other questions?
Yep. Dr. King, if I may, are you far enough into your thinking on this that you have a timeline in mind when a decision would be reached? To Shannon's point, there are a lot of people right now that are, wondering, are we starting August 1? And they're trying to make plans. And so, are you far enough along that you've got a timeline where you think by July 15th, you would have a plan in place, or July 1, or what does that timeline look like?
Yeah, I plan to start with the board, with the executive report today, to give you all an overview of what this initiative will look like. And that will break down the 4 teams that I just shared with you all. And so on a weekly basis, information will be communicated to the board, and after it's communicated to the board, it'll definitely be communicated to the community. So when we think about a timeline for reopening of schools, it would be very difficult if we're talking about starting schools August 1, considering all the things that we have to put in place. But I'd certainly be remiss if I did not take into consideration the voices of the people who have already been here and looking at some things that could possibly happen. So I don't want to give a permanent date or a hard date, but I can say a soft recommendation is that I don't see buses moving on August 1st. There could be a possibility that we move sometime in August, but not August 1st. But again, what we will do is make sure that we're considerate of the plans that families have as we move forward with this initiative. Since this is unknown and it's new to us, I think we have to understand that this is going to be a fluid plan, a fluid process until we understand some normalcy around the initiative.
And I fully appreciate the magnitude of what you're trying to do, but I guess what I'm hearing is at this point, you're not even sure when you'll be in a position to make an announcement on when school starts. I'm not saying when school starts, but just when you'll be in a position to make an announcement on when school will start and what that will look like.
I think come the latter part of July, we could definitely land on some potential dates that we will return to school. So I feel confident about that. I don't want us to not have something to present to the community in July. I don't think it's fair to the community to wait till August to hear about the dates when we're starting school. So in the best interest of the community, I think, we'll just have to push very hard with our work teams to determine what is the best possible date, and then some optional dates should we get different information from the CDC as the numbers continue to rise throughout communities in our state.
Dr. King, it's my understanding that at this time, though, the state is still expecting 180 days of instruction at 6.5 hours a day. Is that your understanding?
That is not my understanding, but that could be a possibility. I know maybe a month or two ago, TSBA submitted some policies and the state board sent down some guidelines, kind of suspending some rules as we go through this pandemic. So I'm not certain about that, but I certainly can check into that and see what the guidance is around that.
Okay. Yeah, and I've got a friend on another school board in another district, and
Okay.
he shared with me, so I'm getting it kind of secondhand, but
Okay.
Their take on it was that at this time the anticipation is that we're going to still have to do 180 days at 6.5 hours a day.
Okay. Well, if you can send that to me, I would certainly appreciate it and start doing some research, and I'll circle back with the board and check, and I'll get with the attorney to look at some of the Tennessee code out there that talk about natural disasters and situations that we're currently in to see if there is some leverage for us to make that we can apply when it comes to the amount of days that students have to participate in school.
Again, I think we all have an appreciation for the magnitude of what we're trying to do here, but I think we're all have a real appreciation. We've got to get these kids back in school next year.
I certainly agree.
Yeah. Okay, any more questions for Dr. King or Mr. Washington? If not, next on the agenda, approval to meet under the governor's extended executive order. We will again have to approve that in our meeting Thursday. And hopefully in July we'll be able to meet live again, but we'll see. The next custodian service name change, Mr. Washington.
Yes. Many of you were part of a couple of years ago when our custodial service that we contract out went from GCA to ADM. It was a management change at the top of the house in which the ADM company acquired GCA. Since then, we went through an RFP and moved to Southern Management Services, SMS, and they have now partnered with HES Facilities, LLC. And so what I did was did a little bit of background check on the quote unquote new organization. Just as we did when we had the RFP, I called some other districts that were using the service or about to convert to the service. Again, I spoke to Hardin County, Weakley County, who's contracted custodial services for probably 15 years. And then I spoke to Williamson County, who currently uses SMS also. All of them were pretty positive, moderately positive, I would say. Nobody was negative about it, but everybody understood HES at some point. The ownership of HES was a part of the ownership of GCA, so it's experienced people partnering with SMS. And the fact that Weakley County, Mr. Frazier there was very, very positive, given that he had a good relationship with the GCA management. He expects the same with HES. So this is just informational for you guys that the people we contract with currently have partnered with another company in the facilities business. And HES is now going to be the entity in which we work with versus SMFs, similar to what happened with GCA and ADM a couple years ago. So I just wanted you guys to know that. And the same management group basically that we deal with on a day-to-day basis will be in place. And the next opportunity for us to RFP this would be next spring if we so desired. Are there any questions? I don't hear. I can't hear. Jim is talking. He's mute. All right. Good.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Any questions?
Yeah, I got you. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I seem to recall that sometime this last year, we had an issue with paper towels and things like that. And given the fact that we'll be operating in a COVID-19 environment next year, I'm assuming a part of that will be highly increased washing of hands. Is there any
Right.
need to specifically address that in a contract that, we're going to be in an environment where that's going to be increased significantly over what we've had in the past?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to be have been and preparing, and of course they're preparing with other districts. That's one of the reasons I spoke to some other districts regarding this. Also, we're all in the same kind of boat together on this, from where we were with them and where we have to go with them from a sanitation standpoint and cleaning standpoint. We may have to have additional services based on CDC requirements or health department requirements as far as cleaning and sanitizing, along with your day-to-day activities of paper towels and hand soap within restrooms. So they're well aware of it and have been using this time, hopefully, well, I know they have been in many places gear up with replacing of the paper towel dispensers and things of that nature. So it's going to be new for us and new for them also, but it's going to take a little bit more effort on all of our parts to make sure we have all the things in place for our students and staff when it comes to sanitation and cleanliness. So that's one of the things I discussed with the other superintendents, Mr. Golden in Williamson County, Mr. Davis in Hardin County, Mr. Frazier in Weakley County, about how this looks going forward. Williamson County is a little unique, is that they have many schools and they have two different services. They contract with SMS and another service with the other part of their schools. So he has a good comparison of how these entities operate and work. But yes, we definitely going to have to do more regardless of who's doing it with sanitation in the COVID environment.
Okay.
Yes. Now, I hear you here, but not through here.
Oh, okay. 2 years ago, this was put in place. I guess I'm wondering if the board itself received information on the agreement or the change agreement as it relates to the contract with the original company.
Yeah, we changed companies last year from ADM to SMS, and that was a topic of the board then, where the contract was reviewed. We went through it, we agreed upon it, and we switched vendors because there was some discontent, of course, then with ADM that caused us to make the change to SMS. All right, and as I said then, this service is school to school. So some schools, you're going to see a different look than other schools based on the people that work there. So you have some schools in our district that are quite satisfied with the service they get, and some of them rate them basically as a C or a B. And that's going to be no matter what you do or how you do it. It is individuals at each school that take different pride, and each school includes their personnel in a different way to make them feel comfortable with what they're doing. And that's what we do. But to answer your question, yes, we did bring this to the board when we had the RFP last year that we switched from ADM to SMS. It came before the board.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any more questions concerning the janitorial contract or the name change?
Yeah, it's just a name change.
Okay, next resolution contract K8. I think we moved this from our last board meeting to this for discussion in this board meeting. Any additional information you want to share, Mr. Washington or Dale? Do you want to share anything in additional since we met last month?
As far as the contract itself, there's been no changes to the contract.
And I spoke with Dr. King regarding our selection and how we went about it. I don't know if he had any comments regarding it, but I provided him the list of all the candidates, the proposals that they made, the presentations that they made, I left him a review of the top 3 of the ones that we did choose from, and gave him an explanation of why we chose the construction manager at risk that we did, Henson Construction. So if he has any comments, I just welcome that at this time for the board. But other than that, for me, nothing has changed. We went through the diligence to select based on, it started out as 8, we interviewed 5, we narrowed it down to 3, and we came out with the construction manager that we did based on the process. So, and all that information was available.
I think you muted. You're muted.
You muted.
Any rate, and you said you did share with Dr. King the rubrics that you used in order to select the construction manager. Am I hearing you right? While I realize that this is not solely or the board's responsibility,
right.
However, I think going in, it would help me to know how you selected the construction manager. So you're saying that you've already presented this to Dr. King?
Yeah, and I gave him the presentations and the information that we used to select.
And Ms. Carroll, this is Shannon. We actually, when Ray and his team selected this construction manager back in the spring to present to us, he went through the whole process of the whole, this is how we did it. We put out the RFPs. It came down to these 3. We chose this. We chose Henson Construction. I mean, I remember sitting in the boardroom having that conversation with you, Ray.
Yeah, I know, but once again, we have some new board members and things going on.
Yeah,
so, and of course, a new superintendent coming in, but I mean, I will do whatever or show whatever, or I mean, we went through it. We did it the right way. We questioned each one of them with the same amount of questions, just like we did the architect. We asked the same questions of each. We gave them, everyone the same opportunity to present their goods as it would impact Jackson-Madison County Schools and what we're trying to do. So I feel good about what we did. And I mean, that's all I can say at this point. We selected this contractor probably about 5 or 6 months ago, and we delayed the contract as we were working through some of the things. And then when COVID hit, we kind of pushed some things back. But you know, certainly we did the due diligence, and as Ms. Stewart says, we were open and honest about what was going on when we were going through the process.
I just asked about the process you used, not how honest it was.
Okay.
And okay, so keep in mind, I heard what you said, Shannon, but all this, you know, I'm coming in on the tail end of this, so that's why I asked the question that I asked.
Mr. Washington, correct me if I'm wrong, but you narrowed it down to 3 different companies. And if I'm not mistaken, Henson Construction was the only local to Jackson company. Is that correct?
Lashley Rich was another local company that
yes,
ended up in the top 5. And then there was a company, Lashley, a company out of Atlanta, and then Henson was local also. But Lashley is out of Humboldt. And then we had another group out of Arkansas that came into play early on, and another local contractor, Brassfield, that also participated in the process. So we had throughout the Southeast, we had 3 local and 5 out of the area contractors that sent proposals in. We narrowed it down and came out with Henson at the end. And that was based on asking all of them the same questions and giving them the same opportunity to present how their plan could fit into what Jackson-Madison County Schools needed to build a K-8 school. And they had a copy of the site so they could envision what it might look like based on our budget and work through the process.
So Henson is local, and and it's one of the smaller ones. Can they actually handle a project this size? That's, you know, a concern, but my biggest concern, because I know that we all on the board, we unanimously are in favor of building the new school.
Yeah, sure.
but we
I'm sorry, I
want,
didn't mean to cut you off.
I want to be able to talk about, I know that it's maybe getting a little off the subject, but I still want to talk about it actually building Pope and to ensure that it's built. So what about, we're talking about construction manager, but what about a start date? Or what about actually getting the money to build this school?
Well, of course, that's another subject, but certainly to answer your first question, Henson Construction is capable of building this school. They showed several examples of schools that they built this size or larger, and projects of similar scope, similar budget. So that's what made us feel comfortable with them with this project, and they've had a good reputation of building schools in West Tennessee for many, many years, and are accustomed to the subcontractors that they would have to solicit. Remember, construction manager at risk, basically his job is to make sure he keeps everything organized with the subcontractors. He gets the bids out. He reviews them to make sure that they fit the specs that we need done. And so, he showed a great expertise over the years in doing that, and the type of project that we're looking at doing. So that was part of the decision in selecting this company specifically. Certainly they can handle this size project and have demonstrated that they can handle this size project.
Okay, and also I'm so concerned about getting this school started. We're excited about it. I'm on a committee now that we are picking and looking at schools and picking furniture and those kinds of things. So is there a start date in sight? And what about the county commissioners and the money part? That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, well, of course, the county commissioner is well aware of this project, and the COVID tax deficit, I won't say deficit, but the shortfalls has set us back a little bit. Thankfully, they're coming in, a little bit better than people expected. So I anticipate from the commission side that this conversation will start again pretty soon. You got several commissioners who are advocates for this project also. And as we get through this little hump over the summer, I do anticipate that conversation heating back up again as far as how we go about building Pope. We purchased the land. They've committed to building it, and we just have to look at our finances going forward to see what's the best route to take. But I know the conversation has not died within the commission, and we look forward to re-engaging it in the near future.
This is Marlon King. I would like to add a couple of comments around this conversation. First, when I learned about the motion to provide me with the information to look through the construction manager contracts, I did request from Superintendent Washington if he could provide those copies for me, and he did. But in between that, I met with Attorney Thomas to learn more about the contract and how it was written up, and he did assure me that it was a contract that he had written up. However, I have not had the opportunity to see any type of rubric or any type of questions that were provided or given to these individuals who were narrowed down to talk about their interest in terms of being the construction manager for the school system. I was going to look at those contracts or the questions and kind of analyze and see. But Superintendent Washington did share with me the top three, and the fact that the one that was selected was a local person. So I just wanted to provide that context around my engagement and interaction with this process.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, I'd just like to say a few things. I appreciate Mr. Washington's due diligence. I have no issue with the contract. I have no issue with the construction company. I'm the one that made the motion down the budget committee to approve this contract and recommend it to the board. I'm also the one that changed that had the issue with it last month and wanted to wait before we voted on it as a board. That being said, I'm just like Mrs. Black. I'm all for a new school. I hope the county commission will fund it now. I'm ready to get it going. My issue was that I felt like it was made clear that the county commission wasn't going to fund any new projects till 2022, which per the contract is set up where all that stuff happens. It's triggered by the county commission funding it anyway. So I really have no issues with that as much now. I would like the county commission to fund it, but I do think that it would be best if we let the incoming superintendent be able to give us a recommendation on this, since he will be the one that will be executing this contract. And that's what I would prefer to happen. And I actually talked to him this afternoon and asked him if he could have that recommendation to us by the meeting in July. He said he could, and that's what I would like to see happen myself personally.
Thanks, Kevin.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that I don't have things confused in my mind. But it's my understanding, and Mr. Washington alluded to this earlier, that us choosing this construction manager and entering into the contract with them is the final, what I would say, the final check off the list of all the things that this school board has to do in order to move this Pope project forward. Like, I would like to go out to Ashport Road tomorrow with a shovel and break ground on this school. But this is the very last hurdle, unless I'm missing something, that this elected body has to jump through in order to get this project moving forward. Now, am I correct?
So like Ms. Black alluded to, there is a committee right now that was formed with the architect and the proposed, and he knows that, proposed contractor, so that we can at least start talking about design and layout and things of that nature. So, you know, Ms. Black and some others are on that group, along with some people from Pope. So we've done all we can do as far as trying to move forward as gently and politely as we can without overstepping our boundaries. But there's certain things that we can do now so that when funding is available, we don't have to do those things. And that's what we're trying to move forward with both the architect and the construction manager at risk, along with the input, of course, from the district personnel, school personnel, and others, that we design a school within a budget that will be conducive to what we're trying to accomplish. So we're doing all those things. Board member Stewart, we would love to break ground as soon as possible, but I just want us to be ready whenever we are able to do that, that we've done all that we can to lead up to it and we don't have to delay any longer. That's my goal.
So my understanding is that us entering into this contract with the construction manager is the final hurdle that this elected body has to go through. At that time, once we have chosen the property, purchased the property, and chosen the construction manager, the ball is in the court of the county commission on them to fund the school. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm trying to get us to do everything we can do.
That's what I thought. That's
Yes,
why
ma'am.
I want to vote on this contract.
I'd like to jump back in here, Mr. Chairman. I'd like
Okay, Carol.
I do agree with Chairperson Kevin that, to me, in as much as we're talking about 2 years out anyway, supposedly for funding, I think it's only proper and fitting that we do allow the incoming, because you're only talking about just a matter of days from now, when he comes in and to oversee this district. And I think it would just be not only fair, but respectful as well to allow him to come in and share this, where we are with this particular project.
Mr. Chairman?
Is that Jim?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
Dr. King is here. Can he not just give us a recommendation Thursday that says, yes, he recommends this? I'm not sure why we have to wait till July to get a recommendation from Dr. King, unless he says he needs more time. But is Dr. King ready to give us a recommendation Thursday on this contract?
I would be certainly remiss if I did not look through the top three and provide the board with a recommendation. As I shared in my interview, judgment is just important to me. So I wouldn't want to haste to make a recommendation. But again, I don't think that I don't have a problem with what Superintendent Washington has done, but I just have not had an opportunity to look through the contracts at a level. But I have engaged an attorney and found out that the way it's written well, but it's more just about the selection process and being able to engage with one of the three choices that were presented.
So that means you're not ready to make a recommendation. Is that what you're saying, Dr. King?
I wouldn't want to make a recommendation because if Superintendent Washington went through a 3 to 4 month process in the selection, I don't want to go through a one day and come to the board and say, this is the person that we think is the best for this construction manager project. So I would at least need until July, a couple of weeks, to really sit down, read, and just have a conversation with the choices that were selected for top 3 or top 5.
So you want to go back through the selection process?
Well, I don't want to go through the full selection process of a 3-month project. That's not what I want to do. This can be expedited.
You want to go back and review either the top 3, top 5, is what you're saying?
I would like to have a conversation with the construction managers who are proposing to be a part of, who would like the contract. I would love to have a conversation with them.
Let me say this. You finished, Jim?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Let me say this. Let me put you in. Here's the deal. I think that I think what the superintendent-elect is trying to say, and he don't want to rush into this. When he actually takes full responsibility on July 1. To actually have an opportunity to look at the select those top 3, 2 or 3. Those contracts is about relationships, and he's going to be actually responsible long term for this process. The other thing too is one of my concerns is I would hope that the county commission could actually give us some type of resolution on how they're going to fund the project. I think everybody wants the school built. We want it right away. Matter of fact, we had talked about starting all 3 projects at the same time, which would have been great, but it didn't happen that way. But I think for us to, I don't know what the rush is to sign a contract when the county commission is not giving us a resolution on how they're going to fund it. So, and with giving the superintendent-elect an opportunity to also look at this and make recommendations in July, I don't see what the problem is. I don't know what the rush is. If the contract is going to leave, it's something, Mr. Washington, it's something that he's pushing in a hurry. What's the deal?
I just proposed,
I proposed the contract when it was ready. We had a lot of things going on in the previous months, and Dale and I worked together to perfect it so we could be in line with the architectural contract. So we got it prepared, I believe, April timeframe and ready to present to the board. And of course, we didn't vote on it in May. We're not voting on it now, but we were just trying to line this up with all the other things that we had going on during the last few months, just to make it more palatable and people can ask questions about it. So, I mean, no, it's not a sense of urgency. It's just that it's been going on for quite a while.
Mr. Chairman.
We presented it in May, but this has been, we informed the board of this during the winter time, late fall or winter. So if it's another month, fine, but this is nothing brand new, that we've had this discussion, and we presented our selection several months ago, regarding the construction manager at risk. So with that being said, it's up to the board on how they want to move. If they want to vote on it in June or July or, take longer, it's at the board's discretion. And of course, I'll be working with Superintendent King to make sure he has all his questions answered and he can see the questions that were asked and the information that was provided from the top three, or all, for that matter, all the different communications that went out, and all that we got back from each contractor or construction manager.
AJ,
Mr. Chairman.
was that, Jim? Was that Jim?
Yeah, if I could
Okay.
respond maybe to your question, what's the urgency? There's a community that's anxious to see the next step on this, and this has been agonizingly slow. But all I would ask is, if the new superintendent wants to re-interview all the candidates and go through that process again, we need to get going on that right now. I would hate to get to July and then, given all of the things we're dealing with to get school open, we say, well, we just hadn't had time. And so now we're going to need another couple of months to go through. So I'd rather just vote, get this thing up. If we're going to move forward with this school, let's do it. If we don't want to move forward with it, let's make that decision. But it does seem like every month it's something new or different that we need to postpone this for. So I would just ask very respectfully that if the new superintendent wants to re-interview the top three or the top five, let's get a schedule for that process and get it where at July we can make a decision, either yes or no on this.
Let me jump in here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Okay. I think I heard Mr. Campbell say, why continue on with it? But I think, though, when we're not certain and we're only looking at the possibility of 2 years, and so that's why I say when we're looking at 2 years of getting funding, what is the issue about waiting until July? This is my point. For the new director, Director-elect King, can look at things and be on board. So I think he needs to just be in the loop, in ample time, in order to feel comfortable about the role that he will eventually have to play in this entire scheme of things. So I hear you say, why wait on the agreement or the passing of the construction manager, but yet still I don't hear you saying anything as to how much time, more time, or the real time, in fact, that we will have in getting the funding for the school.
Mr. Chairman.
Hey, AJ.
Yes, sir. This is extremely disheartening and frustrating to hear. First of all, because I had a conversation this afternoon with our new superintendent, and I believe he said we're all on the same page with this. So I'm hearing some mixed messages there. Number two, the damage of waiting is that these things that I keep hearing out of board members' mouths to the effect of, we all want Pope built, we all want Pope built, but yet, as Mr. Campbell said, we keep agonizingly going through this process, and now we're even proposing we start back over. It's embarrassing and it's frustrating, and it just really seems like, once again, you can say something with your mouth, but then when you sit down and vote on it and you keep killing it, it doesn't communicate to anyone in my community and my constituents that anyone on this board wants Pope built, but the ones that have tried to push it forward. And my third point would be, apparently Mr. Washington isn't able to do this. He went through the process. He's been open and honest the entire time. And to just throw out what he and his team did, in my opinion, is disrespectful. And yes, I think we are damaging something by waiting. It's another shot in the arm. It's another punch in the gut for this community to look at this board and say, look, they can't even agree on a contract that they've been working on for 2 years. We need to move forward with this. My people in this area are wanting to move forward. And what I find funny, besides Ms. Black, everyone who opposes this does not represent my district. They're killing something. And by the way, I voted for JCM at every step of the way, and I voted for Madison at every step of the way, because I know that's best for the district as a whole. Pope is best for the district as a whole. Let's get off our hands and do something about it.
I had a conversation. I had a chance to reach out to the majority of the board members, the ones who were available, to discuss and just talk about this process. And I think one of the main concerns or the main points that were brought out is that there was never a hoax or anything to stop this project. The only concern was that give the superintendent-elect an opportunity to look at the contracts and engage people around this. There's nothing about going through this process and having it be a long, drawn-out process. I have worked with projects and construction managers over the past 10 years, and I can assure this board, this is not going to be a long, drawn-out process. I can assure this community that this won't be a long, drawn-out process. And I can also assure this community that I believe 100% of these board members are in support of building Pope Elementary School, just from the authentic conversations that I've had from each one of them. So I would just like to have that out there, is that if I am going to be the person that this board is going to hold accountable and who's going to do my performance evaluation, just out of due diligence to allow me to engage the person that I'll be working with over the next 2 to 3 years with this project. This is not to take away from anyone in this project. As mentioned through several board members, that everybody probably feels comfortable with the selection, but it's just about being fair and giving the incoming superintendent the opportunity to say, this person has taught and engaged, and we feel really good about moving forward with this.
And finally, Mr. To sit here and to try to make it appear like the board members, because we have any questions surrounding this, don't want to see the new Pope built. I resent that. One of the things I didn't hear you say is that if they're talking about a contract, why aren't they talking to the county commissions about the monies so that we can go ahead with that project? And so you're not talking about the real thing. We're talking about a contract, but we need to talk about the money as well. It is my understanding that the money will be at least 2 years coming to build the school. So please don't sit there and make it look like this board is trying to keep the new school from being built. That is not the case. And so we don't want that message to go out, and do not say that we don't want the school built. Yes, we do. Contract is a contract, but the real deal is when the money comes to the table.
Well, the issue is that we've had sales tax numbers. Sorry.
Go ahead. I didn't thought Carol was finished.
Yeah.
Well,
okay, go ahead, Carol.
Chairman.
Well, AJ, I'm going to step ahead of you. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Miss Bell, at the very beginning of this meeting, gave us amazing sales tax numbers, which I actually received those numbers over the weekend from a county commissioner. And so I think that their whole "we can't afford a school in 2020" message is not falling on me very well. And so for me, in my District 5, which also represents Pope School, I'm tired of having to have this conversation. And so this is the very last thing that this board has to do in order to put pressure, and hear me say, put pressure on the county commission to figure out how to build this school. And so that I'm worried about the money, but that's what we've elected these county commissioners to do, is to figure out how to fund the school. And according to these sales tax numbers, they're not going to end the year as bad as they thought they were. And from what I understand, they have a whole lot of debt that they're paying off this year, and they will have the ability to borrow a whole lot more money next year. That's what I've had conversations with my county commissioners about. And so this whole, they're not going to have the money till 2022 to build this school, I don't believe that. Because when I ran for school board 2 years ago, I said I wanted to build a Pope school. I'm 2 years into my term. We haven't broken ground on Pope school. And so you're going to hear me say, I want a Pope school until I'm not sitting on this board anymore. AJ, go ahead.
Thanks, AJ.
Well, once again, I go back to what I said earlier, words versus actions. And once again, I keep hearing it from everybody We want a Pope school, we want a Pope school. But I don't really care what you say. I want to see what you do. And when you block it at every chance, it just doesn't look that way. And Ms. Carroll, all due respect, what's going to come out of this meeting tonight and what's going to come out of Thursday's meeting, if this vote goes the way I feel like it's going to go, is not that all this intelligent talk. What's going to come out is the board voted to put off the Pope school project another month. That's what's going to hit the news. That's going to be the headline. And so once again, we have mud on our face and we're the ones who aren't taking action. And so I don't care what you say. Vote with your conscience and vote in a way that says you want Pope to get done. And once again, I go back to what I said. Apparently, we've had idiots running the school system the past few months until we hired Dr. King, and he's coming in to fix everything. Now, while I have tremendous respect for the man, and I'm very, very excited, and my job is to make him successful, I also have respect for the regime that we've had since Eric left. And it's been a good group of people. And so I want to respect their decisions. I understand giving Dr. King a chance to look at all this stuff, but the reality is this agreement is between the construction company and the school system, not the construction company and Dr. King, not the construction company and Ray. It's between them and us. And so if Dr. King gets hit by a tornado tomorrow, we're still having decisions to make as a school system and as a school board. So we need to make some action. Once again, I understand my words are falling on deaf ears for a lot of you, but I think we need to move forward. I'm tired of waiting.
May I speak?
Go ahead, Doris.
I'm going to be honest. I came tonight. I know that we aren't going to vote tonight because it's the work section, but I had made up my mind to vote because, yes, I do believe that Ray has done due diligence. But sitting here and listening to you guys bicker, which doesn't make sense, it just seemed like, and I agree with you, AJ, that it seemed like that we just can't even do one thing or another. But I do believe that we should at least allow Dr. King time to look at it. And what harm would that be? So again, we had my mind up. We said we were going to put it off to vote for this. But I just want to ask the question, what harm is it to let him look over it? And more than likely, he's going to decide the way that it's already done. But at least give him the courtesy of letting him look over it since he is the superintendent-elect.
Thank you, Doris. I think one of the things that I think everybody's saying, and I think everybody's serious, that we have the property, we're waiting on the county commission to fund it. And my thing is, again, I'd like for the county commission to actually give us a resolution on how they're going to fund it. The other thing is, I don't think anybody on the board disrespects Mr. Washington, the process he went through. The other thing is, I think it's one of the things that I think that we ought to give respect to the incoming superintendent. I think that's one of the things I think some of y'all have misinterpreting. I'm misinterpreting what you were saying, one. But I think it's prudent for us to give him the opportunity. And he simply asked for that opportunity. He didn't want to make a spur decision moment, and I think we tried to pressure him to come back with something Thursday. Well, that's unfair. That's totally unfair. So I think the opportunity he's just stated that he won't take a week or so, a couple of weeks to go through not go through the full process, look at the three finalists, make a come decision, because I just stated contracts deal with a relationship. And I think that's very, very important. So what are we going to lose? Someone said something about we stopping Pope. Give us the money and we start Pope right now. We don't have the money. So what's waiting in Dr. King have an opportunity to look through the paperwork, the contract. What is it going to hurt? Not a single thing.
Will we sign a contract for a new superintendent 2 years out? That's my question. Will we do that?
What'd you say, Doris? I didn't hear you.
I'm just asking us to think about it. Will we sign a contract for a new superintendent 2 years out?
course not. Of course not. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Let's move on because we.
Mr. Chairman.
Dead horse. Who's that?
Mr. Chairman, this is AJ.
That's AJ.
AJ, I'm sorry. Go ahead, AJ. I'm sorry.
Just a point that we need to think about, I think, as a board. Part of funding this deal is knowing how much it's going to cost. We're not going to know how much this is going to cost until we have a construction manager under contract and they can get to work and give the county commission a price. We have an idea, but we don't know that. So I don't think the county commission is going to take any movement or do anything until they know what dollar amount they're talking about, or at least the number that they cannot go beyond. And we're not going to know that until we have a construction manager under contract. So I'm just throwing that out there. The harm in waiting is we're not giving the county commission even the information they need to begin to say no to us or whatever they're going to say. We haven't even gotten that far.
No, my thing is, AJ, let me say this. My thing is, that makes sense. But what my thing is, how are we going to get those numbers without paying a contractor and we don't have the funds to pay him? That's my thing. So we get the funding. Go ahead, Kevin.
My deal here is, when I originally asked last month, I asked for July. Because in all honesty, I do want Dr. King to give his recommendation. I do. I think it's important to do. I don't overlook what Mr. Washington's done. I don't overlook any of that. I am for this new pope. I want this new pope built. I want the county commission to fund it. I do. My deal is if we vote on a contract, from what AJ's saying, to get them to start working, they can't do any work until it's funded in the first place. They can't fund, they've got the part of that contract has to be funded before they can do any work. We don't know how much it's going to cost to start school this year. We don't know anything about what's going to happen. We don't know what the state's going to decide. We don't know a lot of things. My whole thing is I just want Dr. King to come in and have, and have an even playing field, that he don't have to look back and say, man, I wish I didn't have to deal with this. I wish I'd got ahead of this. That's all I'm asking for. I think that is the respectful thing to do. I wouldn't want to start a new job and people know I'm coming and them vote on something and make a decision about something that I got to live with without giving me an opportunity to make my recommendation with all the information. That's all I'm saying. I do not want to start this school year off or this year off this way. We've been through battles on this board about schools. That's all over with. The new public school is going to get built as soon as the county commission funds it. I just want Dr. King to simply be able to talk to Henson Contracting Company, and if he wants to talk to the other two that make the final cut, that's fine. But I want him to be able to make an educated decision about what he's going to have to do. He has put together a wonderful team with Dr. Williams, Dr. Catlett, Ray's still going to be a part of it, Mr. Washington's still going to be a part of this. There's a lot of wonderful people included in this team, and a lot of great things are about to happen. But it is just unfair and to do this without his approval of it and without his recommendation. I just don't think it's fair. And I asked him today, I said, when could you have a recommendation? He said July. And I think it's only fair to him to give him that recommendation. And that's where to give him the opportunity to give that recommendation before we vote on something that he's got to execute. It's just fair. That's the way I am.
May I share this, Mr. Chairman? May I share this? If Superintendent Washington can connect me with Mr. Henson by Thursday, and we're comfortable with this, we can make a recommendation moving forward. I'm very comfortable if I won't worry about engaging the other two managers. It's just have a conversation and go over the contract and just have some thoughts and see what, because I think we're on the same page, but might be articulating it differently. And what we don't want to happen is this to become a distraction from the goal of getting Pope School, but not only that, the goal of making this system the brightest system, as I've been sharing, in West Tennessee. I just want us to make sure that we do that. I pretty well can work with most people, and I can assure the board this. But I just definitely want us to make sure that we let the main thing be the main thing, and if that's about kids for me, and whatever I need to do, and whatever I need to expedite, you all see I work around the clock anyway, and so whatever I need to do to help expedite this, I'm at your service.
Okay, I just don't want you to
Thank
think
you,
that.
Dr. King. I appreciate your attitude about that.
Okay, I just don't want to think you you're pressured, and I surely don't want you to think you're being undermined. Okay, that's what I want to make sure that's not happening. Okay, any other comments about the KA and the?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so will this stay on the board meeting agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda, plan for JCM and Madison groundbreaking. Mr. Washington.
Yes, as we spoke earlier, June 26th is the day that we're looking at, Friday the 26th, for an official groundbreaking of those two schools. We know that construction has begun, but we want to get out there and do what we should do to officially commemorate the renovation that's taking place at JCM and the construction of Madison on the campus of University of Memphis, both of which are very, very significant in the life of our district. We're bringing back a historical school that has many, many memories for many people and many connotations in our community. And we're moving a structure on the campus of a college campus to continue to give students more options and opportunities as we progress as a district and continue to shine a light in this community. We want to be a light in this community in a bright spot, as Dr. King mentioned. And these are two things that's going to help us on the way with that. So with that being said, I believe we'll set a specific time on the 26th, Chairman Johnson. But as right now, the date is the 26th, the morning of, morning or midday. So we'll do one, take a break for about 30 minutes, and then do the other right behind it, 30 minutes to an hour between the two, and have those two commemorations on June 26th.
Okay, good. So it went. Go ahead. Who's that?
No, I just said yay.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Washington's team will be working with county, construction company, and the city.
Yeah, we'll get those announcements out once we get everything firm with the city and the county. And of course, both will be opportunity to attend both, because both impact both. Of course, the city is working with us on Madison and the county on JCM, but certainly it's a celebration for the entire community. It's not just the city versus county. It's for everybody. These schools will have an impact for a long time on Jackson and Madison County.
Okay. And one of the other things that, in addition to getting the word out, I'm going to ask Janice if she will send a direct invitation to all the county commissioners and city council.
Sure.
And both mayors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just talking to the construction company, I think some of the investors want to be present. So thanks for putting it out there so we give them plenty of time.
Yes, our investors, and of course on the other side, University of Memphis will want to have a presence also.
Right. Okay. Any other questions about that? Mr. Washington's team will roll out the plan, so be looking for the communication.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, board and superintendent communications agreement within 30 days, official start. That's part of the new superintendent's contract. And what I like for each board member to do, if you will get a couple of items, communication type items, and make sure they're not repetitive, that's already in this contract, that you would like the new superintendent to communicate to you, to the board. And for instance, if it's like weekly something specific about operations, some issues, incidents, those type things. If you get at least 2 of those and send those to Janice by close of business tomorrow, so that she can put them together and send them to everybody on Wednesday, so we can go over them before Thursday. So we make sure it's not repetitive items. And Dr. King has opportunity also to look at those prior to us voting on them. Any questions about those?
Pete, I had a question.
Yes.
Could you maybe give an example of what you're looking for? Or maybe I should be asking Dr. King this question.
Well, I think we should be, Dr. King is actually going to do the same thing. He actually is going to have some communication expectations of the board also, so present to us. And one of the things that, if you remember the slate of communication expectations that I think Janice sent out about a month ago that we had for Dr. Jones, those type expectations on communicating to the board. For instance, if it was something like a weekly update on the schools that you attended, those type of things. There in large, there's administrative positions that he feels that you feel that the board should be aware of. Incidents in schools that you feel that he should communicate to us, so we're not the last one to know. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I have Janice send that list out again, so you can have something to review. Is that okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Update from testing coordinator of status of priority and target schools. Is Catherine on?
Mr. Johnson, this is Dr. Williams. Catherine is not on, so I was going to give you the update.
Okay.
So,
thank you,
okay, so the status of the target and priority schools will remain the same for the upcoming school year. Since there was no statewide testing this year, the accountability assignments will remain the same. We will continue to have our 4 priority schools and 5 target schools. Any questions?
Dr. Williams.
Yes.
Do you have a list of those 5 target schools?
Yes. Those 5 target schools, or do you want me to send it to you, or you want me to announce them?
Can you tell us now?
Yes.
Yes.
Those 5 target schools are Liberty, North Parkway, East Elementary, Rose Hill, and JCM Early College.
Okay, that's what I need.
Liberty, North Parkway, I'm sorry, what was the third one?
The third one was East.
Okay.
Any other
Mr.
questions?
Johnson.
Okay. Did anyone have questions for Dr. Williams?
Could she repeat those one more time?
Yes. The 5 target schools are Liberty, North Parkway, East, Rose Hill, and JCM, Early College High.
I have a question.
Yes.
How is JCM Early College High a target school?
JCM Early College High had one area, economically disadvantaged students. One of the reasons that it was noted as a target school was because of the number of students. They were not allowed, they were just in their 4th year last year during the 2018-19 school year, and they were not allowed to count in their senior class. So they were only counting 9th through 11th grade students, and they did not have enough students in one particular category of economically disadvantaged students in one particular content area.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Williams.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I had a question for Dr. Williams.
Sure, go ahead.
My assumption is, Dr. Williams, and if my assumption is wrong, please stop me. But because these priority and target schools will stay the same for next year, my assumption is that we will continue to have these additional supports in these schools, working to get them off of the priority and target schools list. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And my assumption also is, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, we do receive additional funding from the state for these specific schools, correct?
We do. The funding for the target schools, we received some ATSI funding, so not additional funding for target schools this year. They changed the designation from ATSI to target. So we have some additional funding that will be some carryover funds into the 2021 school year and additional funds for our 4 priority schools.
Okay. So my assumption is correct. Now, will the state still, offer us these supports for these priority schools? I know we did a lot of interventions and a lot of tutoring and things like that in those schools. Will they allow us to continue those into this school year and give us the resources that we need to do that?
They will. We did not get a chance to finish up all of our funds, use our funds at the end of this year. So all of that carried over, and then we have additional funding for the 2021 school year. Yes.
Okay. So we should knock it out of the park this next year is what you're telling me.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Williams. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Williams? Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, discuss suggestions for acknowledgement of Southside boys basketball team, their undefeated season. I think one of the things that we had hoped, and I think Mr. Washington had talked to us about in one meeting that we had, we were hoping that the state Athletic Association would come back with a plan on finishing the tournament, but that didn't happen. So one of the things that we haven't done as a board of the system is the county to acknowledge that team and the tremendous feat that they did during this entire year of basketball season. One of the things that the city has already recognized them, but after the pandemic, we kept holding off. So one of the things that I did, I reached out to Principal Tucker, and what she's going to ask her to do is give us some suggestions on some things that the board, we can do as a board, as a system, to recognize those accomplishments. So if there's suggestions that you have, if you could get those to Janet by Wednesday, and Wayne, I'd really like you to chime in since Southside is in your district. And I wanted to do it this month because next July starts another schools, another year, physical year. And we don't want those kids to get scattered where we can't try to pull them together one more time. So any suggestions or questions concerning that suggestion of acknowledging that team, Southside, for their perfect season during the year?
Well, quite frankly, I think that we should go ahead and name them state champions, and instead of just acknowledging the perfect season, because you can't prove to me that they wouldn't have gotten that gold ball. So how about we just do that? We name them state champions. Nobody can argue the point.
What about parade? How fast can we whip the parade together?
Hey, I'm on it. Oh, no, I'm not either. Not unless we do it this week. Week after next, I'm good. I'm out of town next week.
Okay. Well, we'll look at some of the suggestions that all you guys, and I agree with you, Wayne. We ought to name the state champions. Who could doubt them? The other
That's
thing is
right.
we'll get the information, some ideas from Principal Tucker and Coach Fuller. When that race team work with them on pulling something together. And so you have ideas, try to get those to Janice by Wednesday, and we'll pull those together and get those suggestions from Principal Tucker and Coach Fuller, and we'll run with it. Is that okay?
Sounds good, but you're right. We do need to move before July.
Okay. We own it. We own it. See, next on the agenda, update on alternative school performance and operation of the ombudsman, Dr. Williams.
Okay, so just giving you an update, and this is a brief update. I would say that the ombudsman program did not perform at the level that we anticipated at the beginning of the school year due to several barriers and some concerns that occurred along the way. However, we did have a good start, a concerning middle, and a better ending. We ended the year with all assignments, including online learning activities and work packets distributed to all students. Assignments were graded and final grades. Catherine Korth and I had several meetings with the administrator during the school closure to ensure that students were being served. Lessons learned. There needs to be definitely a bridge between Jackson-Madison County School and ombudsman. Ombudsman was not fully staffed for a large majority of the school year. There needs to be a process with DHA on how students are assigned to alternative schools. We exceeded the total number of slots much earlier than normal. The projected number of slots that we got from ombudsman was based on previous 3-year data. So where do we go forward? We would say positive things that we noted was that there was more individual support as far as academics at ombudsman. And we also saw a cultural change in the building, a more positive school culture and climate. So this is what I have as kind of an overview, a brief overview of ombudsman. The students, many of the issues or the concerns, we feel like we own some of them. They were not all just ombudsman, some things that we as Jackson-Madison County should have done a little different, or had that liaison person at the very beginning. And we started to, once that person was put in place and we started to ensure a little bit more oversight and monitoring, we saw some improvements with the program. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am. And listening to you, what would be your recommendation based on what you have reported to us this evening?
Okay, so I've been in conversation with Dr. King and several others concerning, and so we are really looking at that. We have not made a decision. Dr. King has not made a decision. We are looking at that and evaluating aspects of the ombudsman program and determining what we will be doing. We will hope to make a decision in the next week or so because we do have a contract that we do not have a new contract signed yet, but we would need to make a decision within the next couple of weeks or so.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes,
Williams.
Dr. Williams. I'm sorry, I could not mute myself.
Okay.
My question would be about the number of students this year served. Will there be more students or less students served? And if so, will there be different criteria of getting those students in and out?
That is something that we have been discussing. And yes, we understand that we need to make changes in terms of how students arrive at the alternative school. But we also will have had discussions around the number of students that we serve and how they get there as well. So yes, to just say that we are making some changes. It may be less students served by ombudsman and more served by the district, depending on what plan we come up with in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Williams. Okay, next, human capital report, teacher vacancies by subject matter. Dr. Green, are you on?
The human capital report is pretty much the same as it is every month. So, are there any questions on it? As you can see, we did not have any new hires during the month of May. And then we did have separations as far as educators and non-certified staff are concerned. We did have some of those submitted, but overall it is the same report as I report every month. So are there any questions about the human capital report before I move into the teacher vacancies by subject matter?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Green, were the separations, were the majority of them non-renewals, or were there teachers leaving of their own accord?
There were teachers. The majority of them are teachers leaving of their own accord, either through resignations or retirements. But there are non-renewals in here as well.
I mean, percentage-wise, 75-25? Is it more 50-50? I mean, you know that number?
I don't know that number right now, but I can pull it up and I can calculate it if you'll let me speak at the end of the meeting. But I will say that there were fewer retirements than we typically see. Right. The resignations were pretty much running the same. And then the non-renewals were pretty much in line with what we see each year. But I can give you a percentage if you'll allow me to speak later on when I pull up, when I get this information pulled up.
All right, that'll be fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Dr. Green?
Yes, sir.
You may be going to cover this, but I look at the report you sent out. It looks like we had 75 separations in the month of May. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. For teachers.
Dr. King sent out an update as of May 31st and said we have 33 vacancies. So, but then I also think I read that we're not doing any hiring until we understand what next year looks like. So is that how many vacancies we've got? 33 in spite of 75 separations at the end of the month. And you may be going to cover this in a minute when you talk about it by subject, but
I am. And so, as you know, Mr. Campbell, and I know that you've been on the board for a long time, and so you know that those separations do fluctuate. It's fluid. So we do have more separations now than we did on May the 31st, and so I do plan to cover that next. And if there are not any more questions on the human capital report, I can just go right into the vacancies and give you all the numbers and the breakdowns as it is today.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
So as of right now, we have 42 teacher vacancies. 12 of those are at the elementary level. 2 of those are ESL teachers, which would be considered system-wide. 5 of those are secondary English, so that's middle school and high school. 9 of those are secondary math. 3 are secondary science. 3 are secondary social studies. 1 is a secondary special ed. 2 are secondary electives. 3 are secondary vocational. One is a secondary PE, and one is a secondary librarian. So that makes up the 42 teacher vacancies that we have as of today.
Dr. Green, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
The heat map that was submitted on Friday, does it take this, what you just shared, into consideration? Because I'll be sending this heat map out to the board in the executive report tomorrow, and I want to make sure that what you just shared is consistent in that heat map. So that
Yes, sir.
they can see. Oh,
I'm sorry.
is?
It's the exact
Perfect.
same numbers. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Campbell, you'll be getting a heat map just as you got last week. You'll be getting a heat map this week that has this information and highlights the different schools and where they are according to the scale.
Are we still receiving resignations, or that slowed down?
They have slowed down. I have not received any additional resignations since this count from last week. So I have not received any resignations today at all.
And so are we holding off on hiring? Are we looking for replacement fee? Holding off issuing a contract? What are we doing on that, Dr. Green?
We are looking at each one of the positions on a case-by-case basis, and Dr. King, if you want to jump in, I'll definitely turn it over to you. But for the most part, we are hiring teachers because we know that no matter how school starts, we're going to have a teacher to teach our students, even if that's virtually or if that's in the school. So we are hiring teachers. Dr. King, would you like to add anything to that?
I think you stated very well. We are making certain that we have teachers in classrooms and for students, whether it's going to be personalized and virtual learning or even in person. However, those positions that come up at the central office or positions such as consulting teachers or additional support staff, we are looking at those on an individual basis for moving forward our contracts, because we don't know what the exact date will be when we will resume, or that person would assume that new responsibility. And if we give a contract or offer a person a job and they assume the responsibility in August but don't return to school until the later part, we are still obligated to pay that person their salary. So we want to be very prudent as we move forward and also those positions out like that. So that's kind of where we are. But as far as teaching positions, we are filling the vacancies that are coming open in schools.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me say one thing before you go farther. The heat map that Dr. King pulled together, I think, is a really nice instrument because it shows us on a weekly or monthly basis, however it is generated, on the schools that have vacancies. And one of the things that really concerned is large number of vacancies in our priority schools, where we really need the teachers. Students need teachers every single day. So I think that's something will actually show us what some priorities are. I think that's a good tool for us to use. Go ahead, Dr. Green.
Oh, I wasn't saying anything. I'm sorry. I will get these, put the information in that that Mr. Alexander asked for, and then at the end I can give you all a breakdown of how many teachers resigned, how many teachers retired, and then how many teachers were nominated for you.
Okay. Any more questions for Dr. Green? Thank you, Dr. Green.
Thank you.
Next on the support organizations and Jackson-Madison County School System Internal School Funds Auditing Plan. Both of those Holly will cover.
Those are just informational items. I'll be glad to answer any questions, however.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question for Holly.
Yeah,
my assumption is we approve this list every year at the beginning of the school year, entering into the next fiscal year. So my question is, if there's not a school support organization who's on this list, can they come to us, say, in like October and say they want to be on this list? Or do they have to be approved at this time?
No, we've made it a practice to allow that. We ask them to go ahead and present their information early so that they can get started as we move into the new fiscal year. Okay. But we do allow, for instance, if there's a new organization that wants to start up and they're not ready to do so at the beginning of the year, we allow them to make a request mid-year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, Holly. I'm looking at the list and I do not see Liberty on it at all. And I do know, I thought anyway, that they had a booster club or something that no longer in existence.
Yes, ma'am. There are several school support organizations not shown on that list. They were just simply not ready, did not present the information that is required in order for the board to make approval of them. And so as they continue to come in, we'll go ahead and forward those to the board. I do know that some of the school support organizations have chosen not to renew and will not be added to the list.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, any questions? Additional questions for Holly? Thank you, Holly.
You're
welcome. Next, evaluation results was superintendent. Did everyone get a copy of the summary? Janice provided everyone a copy of the summary of superintendent's evaluation.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Next up, questions for the legislative due for June 9th. Janice, Hampton, you want to say anything about the sessions coming up that you've scheduled? Janice, you still on? Guess she's not. Any questions for the legislators due by June 9th? Get those to Janice, please. We do have an Education Vision Committee meeting June 16th at 5:30. We'll be here. We do virtual in the boardroom. Any other questions before superintendent? You can update. Any other questions?
Well, I'd just like to remind us of the arrangements that were sent out for our librarian that we lost at JCT, Ms. Paul Fuller. We sent those arrangements out. I will be stopping by the funeral home tomorrow. The family visitation is later in the evening, but I will stop by and drop off a card and memento from the board and from our office. And that's my only other thought tonight. Just remember that family. And she was our librarian at Jackson Career and Tech School that passed away last week.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for, I'm sorry.
You missed the dates.
School board dates.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Janice, for reminding me. Did everyone get an updated copy of a calendar and for 2020 and 2021, we need to review our board meeting schedule, see if there's any conflicts on the work session date and the actual school board date. So you review those. If there's any in those dates.
Well,
that,
I had two questions. One was the September date. I don't think we can have a work session on Labor Day. Because there's no, we don't have school that day. And also during fall break. I think we were scheduled to have a work session on the 5th and our meeting on the 8th. So I don't know if we need to move those down a week.
Are you referring to last year's?
No, I'm looking, hold on. Work session, September 7th, Labor Day.
You're right. Yeah.
September 7th is Labor Day this year.
Right, I see. You're on point. You're on point.
And then for October, we're on fall break on the 5th and the 8th. And I won't be able to attend a meeting because I'll be on fall break with my family, as will most of our staff.
Okay,
So
go ahead, Sam.
Well, I just don't think we need to have meetings during those weeks. So I know in the past, historically, when they've fallen on holiday weeks or break weeks, we've either moved them up a week or pushed them back a week. So I guess we need to decide about that and maybe just check with Dr. King and see, because I know there was a question also about our July meeting, because we would have a work session on the 6th, which is the Monday after the 4th of July holiday, which falls on a Saturday. So would any of our staff be taking a holiday on the 6th, or will they take a holiday on the 3rd?
On the calendar, here. July.
Those were the only issues I had.
Okay. So the 4th, again, you're right, on. Okay, 4th on Saturday. So our work session was scheduled on the 6th. So any suggestions about that week?
Hey, Mr.
I was
Chairman,
going to go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead, Kevin.
my suggestion is, since it's usually not much going on in July, we just combine it and do it on the 9th, unless there's talking about people being out of town that week, but because there's just not as much going on in July. But that's just my suggestion. But anyway, and do it on that Thursday.
Well, Kevin, I actually, during a normal July, I would disagree with you. But considering that in July, we're going to vote on one thing that we're going to push off till next month, possibly, is the construction contract, or maybe not. We're going to have to be figuring out how to get back to school in July. And Wayne, I'd like your input on that. If you think if we'll be ready to make a decision in July about when we go back to school. And I want to defer to Dr. King, since he will be the superintendent in July. Will his staff be having a holiday? Will they be taking the 4th of July holiday on Friday the 3rd or Monday the 6th?
Well,
or he probably hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah, let me keep in. One of the things that this is going to be was Dr. King's first meeting, but the other thing is it's super important. fact that, we're looking at this 45-day plan for opening school. So I think that, in my opinion, we should have a work session and a board meeting. So whatever the dates they are is up to the board, but I think it's important that we have a work session whenever possible, every month, along with a board meeting. If you guys want to push the meeting back a week.
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Kevin.
My deal on that is, you know, I agree. I wasn't thinking about that, but we probably gonna need to have a retreat in July just to deal with some of this stuff that's going on, and with being so much, because I mean, it is going to be. I mean, there's going to be a long meeting most likely that first week, but the first month of July with everything going on. But anyway, yeah, I'm fine with whatever y'all decide. You're right. We definitely need to have a work session.
Well, and that's part of why I wanted to defer to Dr. King, just to see what he was thinking about his first 30 to 45 days in. Because Kevin, I didn't even think about a retreat, but I did have a conversation with Dr. King about the possibility of a retreat. And we might need to, even if it's not a retreat, we might need to have some special called meetings where we hash out going back to school and what's it going to look like, and having, you know, trying to figure out what it's going to cost and all those kinds of things. But if that's the case, then we need to decide on these dates Thursday night for sure and vote on them, you know, because I know there's people who want to take a vacation. I hope Wayne Arnold is one of those people.
Okay.
Well, quite frankly, next week is that week. Thank you, Jesus. And another consideration is that October timeframe. What ain't fall break may also very well be the time of the new board member orientation with TSBA. So I don't know when that's scheduled for. If Janet could look and let us know that, because there will be some members that won't be here during that time. So.
Okay. Good point, Wayne. Okay. So we'll decide on July, September, and October dates for the holiday in July, holiday in September. So we know that we won't be meeting on Labor Day.
Is there any reason why we can't do a kind of split work session? July, I'm looking at my calendar, I'm sorry. Can we do maybe June 29th, which is the Monday, and then that following Thursday when we come back from July 4th. Would that be, can we do that? Is that too far? The dates are too far away?
Doris, are you suggesting having like a work session one week and then a week in between, and then having a board meeting the next week?
Yeah, I'm suggesting having it. Yes, that.
Well, I'm actually going to be out of town on the 29th. My family's already scheduled a trip because we had no meeting scheduled, and so.
Well, then we can't do it. Yeah. Yeah.
So does that want, let's look at moving the July meeting from the week of the 6th to the week of 13th. So that way we can have a work session on the 13th and the board meeting on the 16th. So we get away from the holiday week. Everybody okay with that?
Works for me.
And I guess we just wait on the county commission to set the dates for Ed Vision, which are typically those Tuesdays of our meeting weeks.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
On the 16th, I don't know if anyone's planning to attend, but that's the Summer Law Institute in Gatlinburg. The TSBA Summer Law Institute.
I think Janice is going to
I
that.
think Janice is scheduled for that.
Well, they have one in Jackson the following week.
All right, so I think 3 of us signed up for that one.
Yeah, I'm going to that one.
That's June the 26th. I was planning on going, but I got a retreat, so I can't go.
Okay, so we're back to the week of the 6th. Janet, has Janice Hampton confirmed that she's going? Yes, okay, all right, she's confirmed.
Are they even having that in Gatlinburg? They are, okay.
Yeah, I checked with TSBA and they said they were still having it.
They are, okay. All right, I'll tell you, let's do this. Let's do this, guys, so we can move. Why don't we do a combined meeting on the 9th, and if we need to have a call meeting, Dr. King's 45-day plan, we can schedule it later in the month.
Well, that's fine, but what happens if we schedule the meeting on a date that someone's out of town? Because
Can you just give those dates to Janice?
well, they haven't been set yet. I was waiting on this conversation.
Okay.
So we can do a combined meeting on the 10th.
On the
And
9th.
then figure out if we need a call meeting and then schedule it.
Yeah, if we have to have a call meeting, we'll schedule it, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, September. 7th is Labor Day. So anyone have any problems moving the board meeting and the work session to the week of the 14th, September?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. And fall break is the week of the 5th, October. We don't even know if we're gonna have school or not, but can we do the same thing, move it to the week of the 12th? The board meeting, well, the work session the 12th and the board meeting on the 15th. Does that work for everybody?
That's Columbus
Yes.
Day. On the 12th is Columbus Day. Are we gonna, anyone celebrate Columbus Day?
Good.
The bank is closed, I think. AJ could probably chime in, but we have school that day.
Okay, will that work for everybody?
Yeah, it's a federal holiday, the banks are closed.
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay, I think that's the only conflict, right? Last conflict, September, October. We got July done, we got September wrapped up, and October moved. Okay, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
And Janice will update updates for us and have that. She'll send it out to us. Okay.
Welcome to the world of politics, young fella.
I love that Wells just made an appearance.
He was not taking notes. Sorry.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, any suggested items for July board meeting? Which will be combined. Get those to Janice and myself. With that, anything else before we adjourn?
Mr. Johnson.
Guys. Appreciate
Mr. Johnson. Yes. This is Dr. Green. I've got those numbers from Mr. Alexander, if I can speak.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, Mr. Alexander, out of the 75 separations that we have so far. 38 are resignations, 11 are retirements, and 26 are non-renewals.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Green.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Okay. If no other business, we're adjourned. Thank you.